Hi guys, Peter Dingle here with part 3, the science behind the solutions. Now, I've already given you lots of the science behind the solutions. For example, I talked about restriction diets and how what happens because the fructans or fructose and the lactose, and as a result, when people got off those diets, in some of the results, I showed you some of the benefits. I'm going to go into a bit more on some of the topics we hadn't covered yet. And the idea of this is to give you an understanding that there are studies out there on just about all of these things. You just got to look hard for them. And that's what we've done, bringing literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies together. And I also want to reiterate this one more time, that this is the only SIBO solution program that considers the full picture. So you all know about the role of the gallbladder and bile. You know about the role of the pancreas and the enzymes and the sodium bicarb and the migrating motor complex, the MMC that moves everything through, and how they're all related with the pH of the stomach and then the small intestine and the large intestine microbiome. So with that, I'm not reiterating, but I really encourage you to look over that again. The logic behind these solutions is pretty simple. We want to achieve 3 major outcomes. Now, obviously, it's reducing the SIBO. So getting SIBO down, eliminating it, getting rid of it altogether, and getting rid of the symptoms so you feel much more comfortable and you can go back to a normal life. Well, the first way we look at that is, okay, what we're after is increasing motility. So what we want to do, and I'm going to be talking about, I've already talked a lot about it, but some other things that can increase motility. So the things that move through the small intestine in particular, to push it out there, because it's not supposed to be sitting there breeding up. Also, microbial control. And the microbial control issue is really, we've got, in nearly all cases, the wrong type of microorganisms. Bacteria, fungi, archaea, all of these are breeding there, and they shouldn't be. But in some cases, it may even be some good, what we call the commensal bacteria, they're causing the problem. And in reality, we just need to flush them out so they can all come back to rebalance. So microbial control is paramount in this, at the same time as motility, as is homeostasis, or bringing back a balance to metabolic function and all the workings of the support organs and your whole body. And that includes the liver, gallbladder, bile, pancreas, and a very, very important issue, gut wall integrity. Because in SIBO, in IBS, in reflux, you've got leaky gut, and that goes to further poison the gut and poison the whole body and end up with the signs and symptoms like we do for these conditions like SIBO. So repairing the gut wall is an integral part of this as well. So they're the 3 things we're going to be focusing on doing and achieving, and showing you some of the science behind it. But what's critical here is that there are what we understand now, there are different microorganisms playing a different role in different forms of SIBO. Now, this is all relative new. This study was actually, different forms of SIBO have different microbial footprints. Is a 2020 study, so very cutting edge stuff. And they find that in different types of SIBO, like SIBO without constipation, SIBO diarrhea, SIBO methane SIBO, or what's called IMO. All of these conditions have a different clustering of different microorganisms. And so understanding that gives us a little bit of hint on some of the ways we can treat it too. And again, just highlighting that if you have a SIBO test, and I'll talk about this right at the end, then it's really well worth finding, not just getting the glucose and the lactose, but also getting a test for methane production, because that will tell you if you've got one of these microorganisms, and particularly the archaea, which are producing methane. And therefore, there are a few extra and slightly different things you can do with that as a result of it. So understanding that, when you get a test done, if you get a test done, and they're readily available now, although a lot of GPs still don't know about it, they're increasingly learning very, very quickly. So there's a whole raft of studies that have been done now in the effectiveness of probiotics. Now, you all know what probiotics are. They're not the ones in your gut. They're the ones that go round and down into your intestines, and on the way through, they have a benefit. Now, they don't actually get lodged in there, so to speak, and start growing and reproducing. Their benefit is primarily while they're moving through, while they're having a summer vacation on the way through your gut. And the research is overwhelming that it helps. For some individuals, it's ended up with complete elimination of it. For others, it hasn't made a difference. But for the vast majority of people, it's added to the benefit. So probiotics are definitely a part of this. And the probiotics that most of the studies, and there are dozens and dozens of these studies now, Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a fungi. So it's a fungi. And then the two major groups that you heard about before, Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus. These are the two of the most common ones you get in probiotic powders. You get Saccharomyces quite commonly as well. And here they're talking. I'm giving you the whole experimental methodology here. So, and you can see the little print at the bottom where the studies have done. So you can always check it out. Some people might say also, look, how come you're giving so much detail? Because there are people here, there are practitioners who are on the course doing our masterclass and doing our membership so that they can actually go help their clients. Because as I said, this is unique and it's totally different to what else is out there. So in this trial, 30 days after the end of treatment, 71.3% decrease in the total IBS scores. And so this was IBS SIBO. So these are the people who had not just SIBO, but also irritation in the bowels, which probably in most cases led to diarrhea and so on. Compared to, there was a decrease in the total IBS scores compared to 10.6 in the controls and so on. So the message is really simple. These work. Here's a compilation of the studies, what they call a meta-analysis and or a review. And again, they showed that probiotics are very, very effective, and probably ended up that with a 60% reduction in the symptoms as a result. And these were primarily what we know as hydrogen-based SIBO, so HSIBO. This one particularly just on Saccharomyces, and the message here was a small intestinal bacteria overgrowth affects up to 60% of the patients with systemic sclerosis. Now, this is a particular condition that is rampant with SIBO. So if you've got systemic sclerosis, as I mentioned right in the beginning, you've got a very, very high chance of having SIBO. And when they were given this with a prokinetic, dramatic improvement in all of the gastrointestinal conditions. So Saccharomyces should make up a part of your program up there. And we'll mention this right at the end as well, when I bring it all together in something a lot simpler. Other studies, again, dramatic improvements in probiotics. And here they did a comparison of probiotics and prebiotics. Now, the prebiotics are the foods that feed the probiotics. And these are kind of what we would call fibers. And they found that the probiotics are better than the prebiotics. However, in general, I'm going to recommend that we do both. Now, on all of this, I'm also going to put a disclaimer in here. Don't change anything else, but try the probiotics. And when you do try the probiotics, make sure you regulate your symptoms. You're really keeping a check on how you're feeling in there. Because what you want to do, and you may get a little bit of a nasty interaction at the beginning as some of these microorganisms push through and start to die off a little bit with competition, but keep check, because as I said, there's a small percentage who may have a slightly negative effect with the probiotics and prebiotics. But on this one, I'm generally going to recommend people have probiotics and prebiotics. Prebiotic, not inulin. And again, you'll come across that later. This is where they did a trial with probiotics and antibiotics. So they compared the two. One was the antibiotic and 20 receiving the probiotic, and the probiotic was virtually just as effective as, if not better than, the antibiotic. I'm not a big fan of the antibiotics for the very simple reason that antibiotics destroy everything along the way and don't enable you to get back to the basics, which is what I'm trying to do here. Also, you've probably heard of fecal microbiome transplants, and they're doing that now for SIBO. And the success rate is probably about the same as probiotics. I think there are too many risks involved in this one. They're actually talking about getting some the poo, the feces, separating out the viruses, because these viruses are also called bacteriophages. They actually attack the bacteria, and treating people with these bacteriophages. And here they said there was no difference between this particular treatment with bacteriophages and fecal microbiome transplant. I'm not a big fan of it, but there's a lot of research being done on now. This paper was written in 2019. So we know that probiotics are effective. Now, the second part, and everyone would have already tried this, but there are some variations on it, and that is in patients with SIBO, you've got the fermentation of something, whether it's sugar, lactose, fructose, or some other material in the small intestine that shouldn't be occurring for various reasons that I've already described. And so most of the exclusion diets start by eliminating certain things out of your diet. And I prefer to start small and build up, and then reverse engineer it. And again, I'll talk about this at the end, but eliminating all sugar. So any form of processed sugar. That also means anything added to your foods. Lactose, that's all of your dairy. Now, in some of the studies and so on, they've reintroduced things like cheeses, aged cheeses in particular, and yogurts, and that's been fine later on. But get rid of them all. And you can do them one at a time. Fructose, important, get rid of all your fruits at the moment. Look at your veggies that may have high fruit as well. And you might remember that it's a 1-to-1 ratio in there of the glucose to fructose, which determines how effectively it's absorbed. But at the moment, just stay away from fruits, and then you can reintroduce the fruits that have the 1-to-1 ratio or better. FODMAP, talked about exclusively, a lot written on the FODMAP program. And then there's a carbohydrate exclusion diet or it's also called the specific carbohydrate diet. And that's eliminating lots of your carbohydrates, everything processed. But again, I'll talk about that later. Now, the thing about all of these exclusion diets is there's good science coming from it. You saw all the stuff I had up on sugar and lactose and fructose. Lots and lots of studies on FODMAPs, and more coming out with the carbohydrate exclusion or specific carbohydrate diet. And so the research is showing, okay, avoid it. Now, these are treatments, not lifestyles, and people get caught up in it. So I don't want you to think, well, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. No. This is about reinitiating the system, taking away the pressure so that your gut can heal, and then reintroducing certain things. So definitely not sugar into your diet, but maybe, as I said, with the aged cheeses and the yogurts, and maybe with some of the fruits, and with lots of the fibers that are taken out in FODMAP, and some of the other foods in the carbohydrate exclusion diet. So these are a treatment that you need to do for a certain period of time. And in some cases, you can do the testing over a couple of days. So a couple of days without the sugar. Now, what we've found here is a couple of studies just showing that kids who had chronic gut pain, they had various different forms of SIBO. When they went on an exclusion diet and got rid of sugar out of the diet, improved dramatically. So it's just another one of those studies. I put up lots earlier, but I wanted to highlight. So you can identify the trigger of what it is, eliminate them one at a time, so you work out it is. Then nothing happening, eliminate all of them. I don't want to put you under too much pressure, you see, but it's really about keeping tabs of what you're eating and being very careful about what you eat. FODMAP, in a study where they looked at gastrointestinal disorders, and there haven't been that many that I can find on SIBO, but they basically showed that the FODMAP, which is exclusion of all your potential fibers that are going to ferment, all your foods that are going to potentially ferment, eliminating them. But as I've said, this is a treatment. It's not a lifestyle. And some people have been on it for months and months and years even. And as a result, they're probably going to suffer from some nutrient deficiencies. Now, that's why I put up this one. This is K-fiber. And K-fiber is a FODMAP-friendly food. So it's got a fantastic array of fibers in it that don't ferment in the small intestine. Now, it's got lots of other benefits. It hasn't been tested on SIBO, but it's shown up in weight loss, reflux, reducing inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel, improve metabolic function, and so on. So it's a cornerstone of fixing the system up. Now it's also extremely cheap and effective. However, like everything, start small and see. The principle here is a basic, really important scientific principle. They call it a scientific study. I call it suck it and see. Try each of these things and see how you go. Now, here's a bit on the carbohydrate exclusion diet. And this is a lot of the things I already talked about, and eliminates all the refined foods and processed foods, all canned foods and preserved meats, root vegetables. So things like your potatoes, um, uh, sweet potatoes, turnips, parsnips, any of those, as well as okra and corn, and in getting rid of all your grains as well. There's a few more things that they probably like eliminating. I say just start with these, okay? Start with these things that aren't going to produce your fermentation. Now, this is going to actually be quite similar to the FODMAP diet already, but there's a few extra things in there. But one of the things I'm adamant about is get rid of all your processed foods. Processed foods have no place in a healthy gut or a sick gut, none whatsoever. Functions of herbs and spices and essential oils. I'm going to introduce you to some. You may have already tried some. And here I want to be very, very clear with essential oils in particular, that you do not ingest essential oils unless they're food grade essential oils, and you only follow the explicit instructions and guidelines because they are concentrated. And anything that is concentrated can become quite toxic quite quickly. So it's just a little bit and only food grade. However, when we talk about essential oils, it also, the studies and the applications we've seen is where it's applied externally around the stomach and the small intestine area as well. So herbal medicines, the reasons herbal medicines are so effective, as is herbs and spices and the right type of foods, is that they have multiple mechanisms in which they work. And as you're already aware, we're trying to fix lots of things at the same time. And this is where medications get it wrong, where they make the big mistake. They've got a drug for this and a drug for that and a drug. And by the time you get to 60, you're on 6 or 7 of these drugs trying to fix it all. Whereas there's a food, a herb, spices, essential oils that'll actually do this. And when you combine them. So the tricky part here is to understand that all these herbs, spices, essential oils have multiple actions. They can stimulate the nervous system, which is great for your stomach, by the way, isn't it? I think stimulate the release of things like motilin, which increases the motility. They can improve your immune system, which actually helps control the bacteria and the fungi in there. Your endocrine system, which is your hormonal and neurohormonal balance and getting it back. They're anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. And what we know is with SIBO, as in all of these gut conditions, there's high rates of inflammation and oxidation. So, and of course, as I've already mentioned, antimicrobial. But what's fantastic is they have all these mechanisms at the same time. It's like taking, 20 or 30 different drugs to achieve the same type of thing, and all of those drugs have serious side effects. Now, always remember, though, that it's about starting small and building up. And in this one, particularly, I'll make the disclaimer with essential oils as well. Speak to a professional about it. Find what you can on the internet. If it's the only one put in your food is essential, is food grade. However, you can get lots of foods and herbs in your food as well as taking them additionally too. And I'll go through a couple of these. So studies have shown that some of the benefits attributed to the antimicrobial, antifungal, they have multiple interactive benefits in there because each of the essential oils has multiple ingredients in it. So they've got groups like phenols, aldehydes, ketones, alcohols, esters, ethers, a whole raft of these nutrient triggers that can actually improve the whole condition. And I'll mention a few, or a few will come up as I go along with this. But herbs for SIBO. Here is a study where they looked at the use of herbs as a treatment for SIBO and compared it to the antibiotic. And basically the herbal therapy came up and was just as good, in fact, outperformed the antibiotic. So the message is herbs can have potent effects. And again, one of the problems with studies is they're done short term. They might be done for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. A month is a long period of time. And what I really insist with people here is this is a lifetime program. Not that you have to avoid foods and all, but these are the things that you can add in. So your herbs, your herbal treatments. I actually take herbs every single day. Fortunately, Martine, my wife, is a naturopath who works with herbs, so I take those. And there are lots of other herbs that you can add into your food and so on. So lots of solutions here. Now, while I've mentioned that they have multiple effects, I also wanted to just show that they have some really specific ones. And here we're talking about natural antibiotics, or natural anti-bacterial, antifungal, anti-archaea. And so these can be mixed in, taken in, and things like thymus oil has shown up to be one of the most potent antimicrobial agents out there. Very, very potent, and you can get food grade. And again, speak to someone who works with herbs on this one, and essential oils. Thyme oil, so Thymus vulgaris. Sage, it goes down the list. There are a lot of tea tree products out there, some wormwood. Berberine, I'll mention a few times. It's not just antibiotic, but it's a biofilm disruptor. So it helps disrupt that protective coating over the microorganisms as well. Oregano oil, clove, garlic. Now, with garlic, be careful, because for some cases of SIBO, it can really set it off. Now, you probably already know this. If you react to the garlic and the onion, and this is probably the sulfur, possibly the sulfur in there, then stay away from it altogether. But in general, if you don't, do a garlic test, like all of this, do a clove test. You can get cloves and add some cloves in. And as you'll see, you can consume lots of them in different ways during the body. Foods that have antimicrobial activities. I will endeavour to make a longer list of all these over the next months, but I'm giving you this now. Olive oil products, olive leaf extract that you can get from your pharmacist, your chemist. You can buy it over the shelf. Olive oil on its own is fantastic. I actually put olive leaf in my smoothies as well, so I get a little bit every day that I put it in. Coconut oil, higher quality, obviously go for the organic one, and coconut oil. Very cheap, very effective, and it has antimicrobial properties, including antifungal properties too. Now, again, with everything, test it and see. Test it and see. There is not one SIBO condition that is the same as any other one. So what we want to do is you find out specifically what works and doesn't work for you. Now, here we're talking about prokinetics. And so, in a sense, we've looked at ways of controlling some of the microorganisms, and we'll come back to that. But prokinetics basically moves things through the small intestine, in this case, also the stomach, the small intestine and large intestine, but in this case, the small intestine. And they're often prescribed with proton pump inhibitors. So those drugs that really cause a problem, and the reason they're prescribed with them is because they stop people getting the SIBO. And essentially what that's saying is these prokinetics, and these are the pharmaceutical ones, which I don't really agree with, because there are lots and lots of natural prokinetics out there in your herbs, spices, and essential oils and foods. But what we know is that these prokinetics are very effective in helping eliminate, control SIBO. So herbal mixtures, there's lots of herbal mixtures out there. One of my favorite is just water and green tea, and that acts as a prokinetic. And test it out with all these, test it out and see what works for you. But I'm a big believer in just starting off with the basic green tea. Green tea actually has antimicrobial properties too. And drinking 3 or 4 cups of green tea first thing in the morning has wondrous effects for cleansing out the whole of the digestive system, the small colon, so your small intestine and your large intestine out there. There are products on the market called Mottled Pro. And if you just Google these, you'll be able to find them. And it's got a couple of ingredients in them. One ginger, another one is called 5-hydroxytryptophan, and acetyl L-carnitine, and so on. And use all these as directed. Another one that's been shown up in a lot of gut issues is a German one called Ibergast. It's got 9 different herbs in there, and you can see that I put them there. Some of them you can actually get and add to your own food, things like chamomile, St. Mary's thistles, lemon balm, peppermint. I've got all those growing in my garden as well. So we've got there. Ibergast is a product that you can get, and very effective. Bowel Restore is an Australian product that, although I couldn't find any studies on it. I've been told repeatedly that Bowel Restore is effective in helping in this program. And there's a couple. I've put down one here, Xianbin. I hope that's my pronunciation. But there are lots of studies on Asian herbs. And Xianbin, I'll highlight some of the studies later on, but Xianbin has been shown to be effective on multiple times. Herbal prokinetics individually, if you look at them individually, ginger extract, Iberis amara, caraway oil, peppermint oil, very easy to come to, and curcumin and ginseng, sorry. Curcumin, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of a product called Metabuzz. It's on our website. Please go get it. Metabuzz, or come to our talks. We sell it cheaper at the talks, but it's on our website. It is a fantastic mix of curcumin and all the things that synergize the power of it. And it's by far the best turmeric curcumin product that I've come across. Medicinal teas. I'm a big fan of teas, and I drink tea all the time. And I'm a big fan of herbal teas as well. And so lots of herbal remedies for improving all types of gut issues. But while there aren't many specifically done on SIBO that I could find, or anything I could specifically find on SIBO, I recommend you give them a test, and peppermint tea comes up time and time again. Now, if you go back a couple of slides, you'll also remember that I had various other things like chamomile tea, which is a relaxant but can help. So all of these other things you can try as tea. One of my favorite is lemon and ginger. And that's a commercial one over the market, any supermarket, and just try sipping on that during the day. You develop a taste for it. And of course, they have lots of other antimicrobial properties. That's the benefit of the teas and these mixes. It's about finding out. Now, I also want to tackle this from a bit of a physiological perspective too, and understand that you've got issues all through your digestive system, and we want to fix it all at once. Again, it's really important to start with the mouth, because the mouth is the source of lots of the microorganisms. The stomach's the filter for it, and the small intestine is the place where it breeds up or not, and large intestine. And so I'm a big believer in starting at the mouth. And here are some: chamomile, salvia, which is sage, summer savory, dill. There's a whole raft of these herbs and all herb teas that you can make into a mouthwash. And while I'll recommend this later, one of my favorite mouthwashes isn't necessarily a herbal tea, but it's sodium bicarb, and it's just sodium bicarb swished around the mouth and a few times and spat out during the day. Okay, so you don't ingest it. I'll explain why you don't ingest it. There is one time when you do, and I explain that. But mouthwashes, so you get the microbial load down, because this is where all of the stuff comes from to actually go into your stomach and then into your small intestine. So if we can reduce that, then we're reducing one of the potential sources of it. Now, that also means first thing in the morning, particularly, because that's when your microorganisms have been breeding up in your mouth. Now, critical to all this is a process called acidosis, and I'll touch on that later. But if you have a poor diet, a processed diet, a Western diet, you're probably producing more acid in your blood than you should be, and as a result, you produce acid saliva, which leads to tooth decay, periodontal disease, and da-da-da. So my message is, one of the things I'll be talking about is rebalancing your level of acidosis in your body at the same time later on. Now, here are the studies on the one Ibergast, also known as STW5. So it's been shown to have prokinetic activity in the top of your small intestine, the middle of your small intestine, and in your large intestine. So it can be very effective in terms of helping eliminate. And this one you can actually get from lots of chemists or online as well. Here is my stuff on Chinese prokinetics. Now, while I'm focusing on prokinetics, I also want you to bear in mind that a lot of these have antimicrobial functions at the same time. They have neurotransmitter hormone balancing functions at the same time. So like the herbs I mentioned earlier and the other things, they have multiple benefits at any one point in time. And so what we do know is Yanbin has been used extensively in China. There's the herbs. I don't know any of those herbs, but if you know a herbalist, you can, a Chinese herbalist, and there are plenty around, they can mix this up for you. The one I do know and repeatedly comes up is Panax ginseng. But Chinese herbalists can make it up. You can also get these Asian herbs on the market. So you can go online and order them online. I've double checked already. You can track them down. So it probably depends on where you are, but I can certainly get them online. So in 40 healthy volunteers, oral administration of Yanbin significantly increased the amplitude of duodenal contractions, which is what we want. Shorten the duration of phase 1 and lengthened and strengthened the phase 3. Remember phase 3? So here is a great one to start with. You may think, well, hold on, it'll take a while to get it. Well, this is the opportunity you've got of testing all the other things at the same time. So, and in this study, like the other studies I've read on this topic, Yanbin also increased plasma modeling, which is the neurohormone that causes a contraction. But remember, it only works when we've got the right pH, hence why we go back and do the whole program at one. And as I've already highlighted, Panax ginseng. Now, here's another one, Da Chenki Tao. Again, I apologize for my pronunciation, another Chinese herbal medicine. Lots of studies on this for various gastrointestinal disorders, but certainly in terms of improving the amplitude and the effectiveness of cleaning out the small intestine. So the amplitude was improved, gastrointestinal peristalsis modeling was increased, duodenal transit time, or orocecal, which is from the top to the bottom, transit time was improved. So great for increasing gastrointestinal motility. And this one, they've done a couple of modifications on, but they've got the liquid form, you can get in the little capsule form. So again, worthwhile considering. 4 medicinal herbs are put together in what's called Daikenchuto, which is a Japanese or Kampo medicine. Now, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of overlap between Japanese and Chinese medicine. This is the only of the studies that I found specifically, where I wanted to. And here they've had done tests on humans and on rats who have had an operation, and their small intestine is moving very slowly as a result, which causes problems if you don't fix it. And so they've used DKT, Daikenchuto, again, pardon my pronunciation, on this prospective post-operative ileus, and it's found to move it all along and improve it and reduce the chances of them getting SIBO. So another one, and if you look at some of it, ginseng in there as well. So lots of opportunities there. In SIBO, a study done showed exactly the same thing. In here, the use of Daikenchuto in SIBO improved the conditions and eliminated the need for laxatives. Again, all great benefits in terms of reducing gastrointestinal symptoms. Now, it's also important at this point to remember that we're trying to not just fix the small intestine, but all the support organs and the whole body, that is, but all the support organs. And thyroid is really important. I'll put a couple of blogs on thyroid, because thyroid has a big impact, can have a big impact on your gut, and in particular, how well your gut, everything is working in there. So you find if you have one of the conditions that is hypothyroid, Hashimoto's is a case there, then you are more likely to have higher rates of SIBO, because it slows everything down. And so what we want to do is protect your thyroid. Now, lots of the things I'm going to talk about later on, thyroid foods and pancreatic foods and liver foods and so on, they're all working, it's high nutrient density foods. But I want to highlight there are certain products that poison your thyroid. Now, here are some simple steps you can do straight away. These EDCs up there are your endocrine disrupting chemicals, or they are hormone mimics. So they get in there and they can literally mimic your thyroid hormone, which slows everything down, and as a result, poisons it as well. And that's lots of makeups and shampoos and personal care products and lots of things around the house, and we really want to get rid of them. I'll give you an example. Is your Teflon on your frying pans and so on, and plastics in plastic. So in my household, we don't use Teflon, anything with Teflon on it, and we don't have plastics. We've eliminated the plastic where we store food and things. We use it for some things, and we cut our fluoride out of our water, drinking water, and our, we've made our cosmetics and personal care products a lot safer. Now, we've got lots of suggestions up on our website if you look at the products we use. All this information is there. Household sprays and toxins. Have a think before you do it, because every single little bit counts. Now, this may only contribute to 5 or 10%, but every 5 or 10%. Then, okay, how do we improve thyroid function? By the way, you're obviously in the membership program. So I've got a whole raft of things on chemicals that cause dysbiosis. I've got a whole series of presentations on what's called dangerous beauty. And it's all about the personal care products, and I'll have more up on water and so on as we proceed. So it gives you a lot more insight into that. That's what's so good about the membership program. It just offers so much information in all of these areas, and then we bring it together in something like this. Now, fixing your thyroid, improving your thyroid, all the research shows thyroid function and gut function are intimately linked, right through from, as I said, Hashimoto's disease to celiac disease and certain sensitivities as well. So we know when you fix the gut, when you get the gut and here large intestinal microbiome, we start to improve thyroid function. So it's a win-win-win situation. Lower sugar plays havoc with the thyroid gland, and mineral-dense foods and minerals that are particularly unique to the thyroid, iodine and selenium. And you've heard a lot about those, I'm sure, over the years. Selenium is known as an anti-cancer mineral, according to the Food and Drug Administration of the USA. So, and most people are low in selenium. Iodine, particularly rich in anything from the food, and selenium as well to a degree. So, and we'll talk about those, but mineral and nutrient-dense foods. Gut thyroid link, as I've already highlighted, there's a big link between the gut thyroid that I've highlighted. Other nutrients, iodine, copper, iron, all involved in thyroid synthesis. So if you're not getting them, if you're not digesting them in the stomach, if you're not absorbing them in the small intestine, then you're going to be low. And in most cases, people in SIBO are going to be low in these, which exacerbates the problem. Remember right at the beginning how I linked SIBO with all of the malnutrition diseases in the young and very old and in poor places and underprivileged and so on. And so malnutrition resulting from SIBO and SIBO resulting from malnutrition. It's a vicious cycle. So we have to build up those nutrients. And obviously vitamin D is important. And my favorite one there is just go out and get some sun. Just go out and get some sun. Your gallbladder, gallstones and liver all comes down to your diet, environment and lifestyle. And one of the things I will highlight here, it really comes down to creating an alkaline environment for your body. Now, this is very different to your pH in your stomach, and I'm going to talk about it later, but most people in our Western lifestyles have what's called acidosis, which is inside the body. So your blood, your saliva that you're secreting, all of these things in your urine, they're slightly acidic, and the body doesn't want to be acidic inside. It wants it in the stomach, but it doesn't want to be inside your body, in between the cells and in the cells and so on. And so it tries to get rid of it. And what we want to do is alkalize that. And so the diet and nutritional program I'll be talking about later on is all about that. And that's more fruit and more veggies and off the dairy and off the processed foods and off the sugars, which are all acidifying. So it's a win-win situation. Everything I'm talking about fits in to this program. But we do know, for example, gallstones and liver, gallstone problems are definitely linked to acidosis in the body. So remember that. And the studies show that about 15% of people have gallbladder issues, but there's a whole raft of people, probably another 30 or 40% who have underlying gallstone issues who aren't yet diagnosed and may not ever be diagnosed, but they're having problems, e.g. SIBO. Pancreatic support. Your pancreas is the main organ for two main functions that we are looking at here. It does hormones, and chemicals that go around the body and send messages around, but the ones we're focusing on primarily here are your digestive enzymes and sodium bicarbonate. And so it has to produce those digestive enzymes as much as possible. And to do that, if you're eating a processed diet, you're really making your pancreas, you remember that slide I put up back at the end of part 2, you're really making your digestive enzymes production process really struggling in your pancreas. And so you want to give it pre-digested foods, they're fermented foods, raw foods as much as possible. And that's what I try to do, and I don't have SIBO. And these are the things that make it easier and easier. And when you've sorted out the foods you can eat, the fruits you can eat, the veggies you can eat, and so on, you have more of them. Some foods have higher levels of enzymes, and typically things like anything that's fermented, your miso, your soya sauce, all those products. And they're the only soya products I tend to recommend to people. Otherwise, you stay away from soy products. And your foods, some of your tropical foods like papaya or pawpaw, mango, one of your local fruits is kiwi fruits, all rich in enzymes. So they help that process of digesting. So consuming them with a meal can help with the digestive process. But again, make sure they're not one of the foods that are linked in with your fructose intolerance or your FODMAP issue in there. So you need to double check everything, but this is where you can come out. And we'll have a presentation on healthy digestion later on as well. And this also, as I said, brings to raw foods, and my favorite raw food is the smoothies, because you just have such an opportunity to mix in lots of different things and test them before you do. And studies on fasting generally show that fasting is good for the whole gastrointestinal system. Now, I'm not talking about long fasts. My favorite fast is the 12-12. That is just eat until 7 o'clock at night and then don't eat anything after that. And then when you get started in the morning, 8 or 9 o'clock, you can eat again. Don't overeat, and that's a big issue here, but just eat these things. If you have to have a snack at night, you have a snack that's very easy to digest. And you already get the hint of what that is. But the studies done on Ramadan show that all the symptoms of GERD and other gut conditions in other studies improve. I couldn't find one on SIBO, but I'm just imagining that if you're not feeding it and everything is moving through, then you're going to have a benefit. And these studies suggest not long-term fast, probably a 24-hour fast is all you may need, but generally the 12-12 fast is what I do virtually every day anyway, easy to do and implement. And then finally, I just want to make something about testing. And I've been alluding to testing all the way along and the importance of it. However, I did find a study, and this was just, again, 2020, so understand the cutting edge of all this, is that with glucose testing, so they give you a sample of glucose and then they'll measure your breath test a little later. And if you're producing hydrogen, then they know that you've got hydrogen production being produced in there from the fermentation in the small intestine. Now, a lot of people will show this, by the way, at low levels. And what this study is saying is use the smaller amount. So it says 25, I think it's grams of glucose, not the 50-gram test. And why 25 is because 20, or even less, is because the higher level glucose at any one point in time can actually cause some inflammation and induce some gastric injury. So the message is, again, I'm trying to keep you off sugar, but in here you need to do the test if you are SIBO positive, hydrogen SIBO positive, and as a result, be wary of the tests as well. Okay, so there is this study, and it's just raised a little bit of concern. So I've now got to the next stage. I'm stop here, and I want you to literally to digest all of this information. I want you to think back on some of the things I've said, have a look at availability of them, and then when you've had to think about it, we've got the rest of it here that you'll be able to go on to and check it out. So you've got a huge amount, and part 4, the SIBO solution, is just about to go up.